Picking up on the theme, MSNBC contributor Rick Stengel, who, by the way, once upon a time was an actually distinguished journalist, but now seems to have drank the Kool-Aid, seems to have it all backwards again about Iran, which you probably thought was a real authoritarian state, right? No, wrong-o, says our Rick, who says that contrary to what we see on TV, Rita, you might disagree with this, Iran is actually really European.
Yeah. Iran is the most Western nation in the whole Middle East. We have much more in common with them than a lot of countries that we do have alliances with.
Really? Okay, well, maybe before the revolution, but maybe these days he meant European, I guess, in the sense that in Tehran, as in many neighborhoods in certain European capitals, it is safer for women to go around wearing a headscarf. Who knows? But don't think Australia is immune to this sort of thinking. Our own foreign minister, Penny Wong, has succumbed to this very same relativism, suggesting that the best result for the current Israel-Iran war, which has just had a massive development, is not for Iran's mullahs to be defeated, but rather for the conflict to be dialed down so the mullahs get to live another day while continuing to destabilize the entire Middle East through their terrorist proxies.
I emphasise there is an opportunity, given what President Trump has said. There is an opportunity over the next 2 weeks for de-escalation, dialogue and diplomacy. That is what we want to see, and that is what the world wants to see. Iran must come to the table, and it must stop any nuclear weapons program.
Now, I want everybody to stop and think about what the foreign minister was just saying there, because, in fact, there was a little truth bomb buried in here, and that is that what Wong was saying, Wong, whom no less a figure than Shadow Attorney General Julian Leeser has called out for her hostility to the West and Western values and Israel, well, what she's really calling for is for Iran to be handed a great big win and a propaganda victory. Because if the mullahs are able to survive, even after what just happened at Fordo, if they are able to survive the current onslaught, they will declare this as a win for the mullahs against the little Satan, i.e. Israel, and the great Satan, namely the US of A. Meanwhile, just to go back to the US for a moment, let's have a little fun. If you want to talk about authoritarianism, well, it seems that there is an authoritarian streak creeping into American politics, not from the right as we always hear about it, but rather from the left. Here's former president, the old community organizer-in-chief, Barack Obama, speaking just a couple of days ago about free speech, the internet, and you guessed it, the need for more government regulation to make sure that us normal folk only get official approved facts.
Part of what we're going to have to do is to start experimenting with new forms of journalism and how do we use social media in ways that reaffirm facts, separate facts from opinion. We want diversity of opinion. We don't want diversity of fact. By the way, it will require some government, I believe, some government regulatory constraints around some of these business models.
Ah, yes, where have I heard that before? You know, old Brack is sounding a lot like Jacinda Ardern, the COVID-era PM of New Zealand.
We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide information frequently.
Yes, the left loves the idea of facts being settled and not contested, so long as they come from the government as the single source of truth. That's never worked out badly before, has it, people? Nah. Anyway, it's all ironic because once upon a time, the left used claims on free speech as a way to undermine the establishment, but now that they are the establishment, well, all bets are off. Now, to be fair, Barack Obama did go on later in the speech to say that this regulation, whatever form it took, would have to be consistent with the First Amendment. But it seems hard to know where to begin unpacking such a claim since America, in America at least, they take a very expansive view of free speech, including speech that might hurt your feelings. So I don't know how that works. But speaking of hurt feelings, and maybe this is actually the nub of it, maybe it's actually Barack's wife's Michelle's free speech on the internet that Barack Obama is really concerned about, given her increasingly frequent jibes at her husband. Mm-hmm. The ex-First Lady, well, not ex in that sense, at least not yet. Here's Michelle, who, don't forget, had 2 daughters with Barack, talking on her IMO podcast about whether or not she would have liked to have had a son. And I tell you what, her husband Barack might have found this a bit difficult listening.
You should have threw a boy in the mix.
I would. I'm so glad I didn't have a boy.
Yeah.
Because he would have been a Barack Obama.
It's like baby Barack. It would have been amazing.
Ooh, no, I would have felt for him.
Yes, that's what every man wants to hear, that his wife would have hated having a son like him. To put it another way, Mr. President, that's a hell of a truth bomb.